Hare Krishna. Thank you for joining the discussion on Bhagavad Gita today. So we'll start with Jai Radha Madhava prayers and then we'll discuss today's verse. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayo Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jayo Krishna Balaram. Jayo Gauranitai, Jayo Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jayo Gauranitai. Jayo Srinivas Govinda, Jayo Srinivas Govinda, Jayo Srinivas Govinda, Jayo Srinivas Govinda. Narsimha Jayo Prahlad Narsimha Jayo Prahlad Narsimha Jayo Prahlad Narsimha Jayo Jayo Prabhupada 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Nitai Gauranga ki, Shri Srinivas Govinda ki, Shri Prahlad Narsimhadev ki, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining again. So we'll discuss today from the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We'll discuss the 6th verse. So I'll recite the verse few times and then we can discuss about the verse further. So let me bring up the verse here. So the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, this is where Krishna is actually now at this point of time, he starts describing about his kingdom, about the spiritual world. So this is very interesting to see what Krishna is telling about the spiritual world. So this chapter itself is known as the Yoga of the Supreme. So the 6th verse I'll recite now and we'll discuss further on this verse. Just give me 1 second here. All right. So I'll recite the verse few times and then we'll discuss. Na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanka na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante taddama paramam mama. I'll repeat again. Na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante taddama paramam mama. I'll repeat once again. Na tad bhasyate suryo na shashanko na pavakaha yadgatva na nivartante taddama paramam mama. So just 1 second here. All right. So here I'll read the word-to-word meaning, translation, and purport. So the word-to-word meaning: na, not; tat, that; bhashyate, illuminates; suryaha, sun; na, nor; shashankaha, the moon; na, nor; pavakaha, fire; electricity; yat, where; gatva, going; na, never; nivartante, comes back; tad dhama, that abode; paramam, supreme; mama, my. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: that abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by electricity. One who reaches it never returns to this material world. Purport: the spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, which is known as Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavana, is described here. In the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity, because all the planets are self-luminous. But all the planets in the spiritual sky, we have only one planet in this universe, the sun, which is self-luminous. But all the planets in the spiritual sky are self-luminous. The shining effulgence of all those planets, called Vaikunthas, constitutes the shining sky known as Brahma Jyoti. Actually, the effulgence is emanating from the planet of Krishna, Goloka Vrindavana. Part of that shining effulgence is covered by the Mahat Tattva, the material world. Other than this, the major portion of that shining sky is full of spiritual planets, which are called Vaikunthas, chief of which is Goloka Vrindavana. As long as the living entity is in this dark material world, he is in conditional life. But as soon as he reaches the spiritual sky by cutting through the false perverted tree of this material world, he becomes liberated. Then there is no chance of his coming back here. In his conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world, but in his liberated state, he enters into the spiritual kingdom and becomes the associate of the Supreme Lord. There he enjoys eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if he takes to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. One has to associate himself with devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction of the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. In chapter 14, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. The words Paramam Mama are very important here. Actually, every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. But the spiritual world is Paramam, full of six opulences. In the Upanishads, it is also confirmed that in the spiritual world, there is no need of sunshine or moonshine, for the whole spiritual sky is illuminated by the internal potency of the Supreme Lord. That supreme abode can be achieved only by surrender and by no other means. Thus ends the purport. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitanjena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Hare Krishna. So here in this sixth verse, as we are seeing, Krishna is mentioning about the spiritual world. Now, why is Krishna talking about the spiritual world? This is kind of a continuation from the previous verse. In the previous verse, actually, this chapter itself, Krishna is describing various things. He begins the chapter by mentioning about the nature of this material world itself. He says that this material world is actually like a banyan tree which has its root upward and branches down. So generally we are aware of a tree, generally the branches are upwards and root is downward. But this is like a reflection, an opposite way of what it is. So what Krishna is trying to say here is that this material world is actually a perverted reflection. Like when do we see a tree, where the roots are upwards and the branches are downwards? Only in reflection, right? If a tree is next to a bank of a lake, a water body, and if the lake is still, and we see the reflection of the tree in the lake, and it is exact opposite. It's the reverse image. When we see it, the reflection, we see it all as if it starts off from the land and the root, and then the tree is like growing downwards, and there are leaves and branches, and then there is sky even below that, right? It's a perverted reflection. So Krishna starts off saying in this chapter, but that this material world is like that banyan tree. And it's very important why Krishna is using the word banyan tree. Why not a simple coconut tree, right? The banyan tree, as you can see, is a very complex network. If you ever observed a banyan tree, sometimes it is even difficult to find out which is the real trunk, the main trunk, right? Because the tree grows, and from the branches, actually again there are this roots again, they develop from the branches and they touch the ground, and again that also starts taking it becomes another root of the tree. So the roots are all spread all over it. Sometimes it's even difficult to find out which is the main root. It's a very complex tree, and there are so many branches, so many trees, I mean so many leaves, and it's a very big network. So this material world, also the world around us, is very much like that. It is like the tree. It's a very big network, very complex situation we have here. And then Krishna further says about this tree that you know uh, one has to you know figure out a way to actually free himself from this tree, right? If you are it Because it's a big network, one, we are all stuck in a network of these branches and leaves. We are all stuck in this tree. Actually, it is not the correct tree. We don't belong in this tree. Just like a bird, it has to be in a proper tree, not an upside down tree. Everything Nothing is good. Everything is, if the tree itself is upside down, you can imagine nothing is going properly over there. That is why in this material world, because this is like a literally like an upside down tree, everything is havoc, everything is chaotic, everything is challenging, everything is disturbing, everything is distressing in this material world. Our existence, so much so that the science, we have learned that struggle for existence, our life itself is classified the life itself is classified as struggle for existence. We're all struggling for existence in this world over here. So Krishna is saying that this is not tree where we belong. We need to actually make our way out of this. So he further says that the tree is very complicated. It has it's extended upward and downward, and then he further says that it is nourished by the modes of material nature, and the twigs are the objects of the senses. So he further explains, in the next from the 15th chapter, from the first till this fifth verse, he talks about this tree. And as we were discussing, it's a very complex tree. So Krishna says in the third verse, third and fourth, he says, the real form of the tree cannot be perceived. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins. Right? We've seen a banyan tree sometimes. I think in Chennai there is one very big tree. It's a banyan tree, but it's very wide, few hundreds of meters wide. People go and actually visit the tree. They take pictures. It's a very big. It's like from far away looks like a small forest, but it's actually just one tree. Right? So in the same way, Krishna is saying it's very difficult to find out where it ends, where it begins, where the foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So what is it that's keeping us in this complicated tree? It is attachment to this world. So what is Krishna saying? Then how can you come out of this tree? By detachment. So that means we should get detached to this material world. Currently, all our attachments are in this material world. Starts with our body. We're attached to this body. Starts with our relationships, our country, our land, in our world. It just goes on and on. Our property, our accumulations, our designations. There are so many. Everything we're attached completely in this material world. And then what we should do? Detach from it and then do what? And then Krishna is saying one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything has begun and in whom everything is abiding since time immemorial. So now Krishna is saying that from this complicated tree, one should free himself from this tree and go where? Where should we go? If we get detached from this tree, we are in this material world. We have all these attachments. He's saying you should go to that place, going where we won't return again. Why? In this tree, what is happening? We are taking birth, and at the time of death, what happens? Unfortunately, in general, everyone returns again to this material world. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Very famous song written by Shankaracharya. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. He's saying, you Muda, you fool. Muda means fool actually. He says, you Bhaja Govindam, you worship Govinda. Why? Because otherwise unnecessarily you're rotating in this cycle of birth and death. Punarapi Jananam, Punarapi Maranam. Is birth fun? Is death fun? Is this whole life, material existence, is it fun? So many miseries from childhood, from the time one is born. The womb, they're stuck in the womb for 9 months. And we have discussed this earlier also. At the 7th month, it is said, all senses are completely evolved. They're completely able to perceive everything. But they're not, delivery doesn't happen 7th month, the delivery happens 9th month. So until, even if it is, understood that until seventh month one is in an unconscious state of mind, like sleeping, you don't know if you're sleeping, you're packed in a bag, or you're in a comfortable bed if you're unconscious. But what if you become conscious? You're awake from your sleep, and suddenly you realize you're packed up in a bag. You can't move, you can't talk, you can't cry, you can't even see clearly. And imagine being in such a state for 2 months. It is a miserable existence, miserable, like suffocation. It is extreme levels of distress. It is said that when the child is in the womb, he remembers his past lives, and then he even remembers God, and he prays to him that Krishna, Govinda, oh God, please help me out of this complicated situation. Because suffocation, imagine if you are tied up hands and legs, how much can we tolerate? A few minutes, few hours. Imagine if it goes for days and weeks and months. So that is why the moment the child is born, what does the child do? Is he happy and smiling and looking all over? He cries and cries so much because suddenly, finally, he got an opportunity. The pain and misery the child has been undergoing in the womb for 2 months, even the nose, mouth, everything was blocked. He was in the womb. Finally, the child gets an opportunity to at least cry out his distress. And it is said the child cries, and then out of exhaustion of crying, they will faint, and that is when they will first fall asleep. Or else the child is crying. That is just one birth. Now imagine again and again if we have to go through that. Is that a good deal? And not just birth is a problem, everything else is a problem. From then, struggle for existence. Childhood, school, college, job, life, security, so many challenges. It's a struggle for existence. At every stage, there is a struggle. And if any stage, if we slacken, we'll get into very big trouble. And then old age, and then disease, and then finally death. And does it end here? Punarapi Janaram. Then Shankaracharya is saying, you Muda, you fool, you don't know. You went through this whole thing. Are you thinking it's all over? No, it will repeat again. And how many times this will repeat? It will go on repeating until you go back to Govinda, into go back to Krishna. And how can you go? Bhaja Govindam Modabate. Very simple. You worship Govinda. As simple as that. And that is what Krishna here is also saying. One must cut down this tree with the weapon of detachment. So it is very important. And Krishna is now further is saying, and you should surrender to that Supreme Lord. And in the next verse, what he's saying, what happens once one gets this detachment? So here is what Krishna is saying. Nirmana moha jita sanga dosha. Free from illusion. What is illusion? Thinking that I am this body, these relationships are my relationships, this property is my property, this wealth is my wealth, this fame is my fame, this designation is my designation, everything, illusion. This is all illusion. Why? Because first of all, this body is not our body. We are in this body. Just like if you're in a rented apartment, can you start thinking that is your house? It is foolish. If you just rented an apartment and start saying everyone, oh, I own this house, this is where I belong, people will laugh at you, isn't it? So in the same way, we don't belong. This body is not ours. We are not this body in the first place. We are a very temporary guest in the body. Body is a machine. Krishna says, Yantra Rudani Maya. Dehinasmin. Dehi. We are in the Deha. Deha is a body, just like a car, like a machine. If you're sitting in a car and after some time you walk out of the car, can you say, I am the car while you're in the car? So thinking that we are this body is literally an illusion. Thinking that a driver is thinking, I am the car now. Right? So that is illusion. So we'll be free from all these levels of illusion. The illusion starts with the bodily concept of life. Thinking I am this body is the beginning of this illusion. That is why in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna very clearly, he makes it clear that you are not the body, you are the soul. That's what, Arjuna was completely baffled. Why? Because he thought he was his body. Then he thought all this Bhishma, Dronacharya, they are his related to him, like grandfather, my teacher, and everything. Yes, all these relationships are there, but they are temporary. They're not eternal. It is like a drama. It is like a show. When you're in the drama, when you're in the play, you do have some relationships, but it's a very temporary. So our life is literally so temporary, so much so that our life itself is sometimes, compared to a dream. Because in dream also so many things happen, people experience, they go through those levels of emotions. Sometimes something disappointing happens in dream, they actually, when they cry, they scream out. So they go through that, but it is very temporary. Once you wake up, it's all gone. So this life also is like a dream. So Krishna is saying we should be freed from illusion. And once you're free from illusion, everything else, all the wonderful things start falling in place. What is it? Nirmana moha jitasanga dosha, false prestige. We will be free from false prestige also. Like the designation. If I'm not the body, what is the use of the designation of the body? I'm a minister, I'm so and so, I'm so and so. I'm not even the body. The body will be remaining here once the soul leaves the body. And false association, free from all these things. And then Krishna is saying, one who understands Adhyatma Nitya, that he is actually eternal. I am not this body. The body will end and die, but I am eternal soul who is changing different bodies. Just like a driver, he might be switching so many cars, but he's not the car. He's there even if one of the car gets destroyed, he's still there, right? And then Krishna is saying, who is done with material lust and freed from the duality of happiness and distress. So one should be done with lust. What is lust? A very strong hankering desire to enjoy this material world. I want more money. I want more sense enjoyment. I want my eyes to be pleased. I want my tongue to be pleased. I want my nose to be pleased. I want my ears to be pleased. There's so much lust, constantly looking for satisfying the senses. First of all, we are not this body, we are not the senses. We are in the body. Trying to do material enjoyment is like sitting in a car and spending all your energy to polish the car, to wash the car, right? To put very good, nice care of the car. First of all, you are not even the car. It is foolishness. It is sense enjoyment. Yes, definitely it looks good when you clean the car, but that is not your real enjoyment. You should feed yourself. You should actually eat good food if you want to remain healthy. If you don't eat food and all the money you're getting, you're taking care of a car in which you're driving, you will only get exhausted and you will actually even die, right? So that is what Krishna is saying here, that one should be freed from the duality of happiness, distress, and lust, the sense enjoyment. And finally, who knows how to surrender unto the Supreme Person. We should finally be detached and finally we should surrender to the Supreme Person. What happens if we surrender? There Krishna says, attains that eternal kingdom. So Krishna is saying here, once we do this, once we cut down this attachment to this material world, to this material tree, and we become free from illusion, anger, and false prestige and duality of happiness and distress, and we understand we are eternal, and we know that we surrender to the Supreme. Krishna is saying here, attains to that eternal kingdom. So he starts mentioning this eternal kingdom. Until now, he is only saying about the material world and we should be detached and it is full of miseries. But now in the 5th verse, he's saying, Gachanti Amuda Padam Avyayam. See here the word. We saw Shankaracharya, he was saying, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudamate. He's saying, you fool, worship Govinda. And here Krishna is saying, Gachanti Amuda. Opposite of Muda is Amuda. Amuda means unbewildered, who is not a fool. So Gachanti Amuda, if one is not a fool, Gachanti means to go somewhere. Where he will go? Padam Avyayam Tat. So Krishna is saying one who is freed from all this attachment and illusion and lust and everything, he will go somewhere. Gachanti Amuda, that person who is not a fool, who is not bewildered anymore. Padam Avyayam Tat. Avyayam means eternal. This material world, everything is temporary, right? But Krishna is saying he will go to an eternal place. And what is that eternal place? Is this verse we are discussing today. Krishna is now talking about that eternal place. That eternal place is a spiritual world. It is the spiritual kingdom. And what is the qualifications? What are the characteristics of this spiritual world? Now, this is something in nowhere else we will get this knowledge. We will only get in the spiritual books. Because our material scientists have not even gone till Mars. They have still sent some robots and they're trying to analyze some sand and soil and see whether there is ice, water or not. That is just one planet next to us in the solar system. Solar system itself is so huge. To go till Pluto or Saturn, I think there was a satellite they sent 40 years ago, and few years ago recently it reached Pluto. Right? Even to reach Pluto, it took so many years. And this solar system is just one small system in our galaxy, the Milky Way. And the galaxy has hundreds, thousands, millions of such solar systems. And such galaxies, there's only one galaxy. Our galaxy is called Milky Way. Next to us, there is another galaxy. They call it Andromeda galaxy. So every galaxy has hundreds, thousands of planets. And we are struggling just to go to the nearest planet, Mars. right? So this material world, we can only know, the that satellite 40 years ago, I think it was Voyager. It took pictures of Pluto and it sent it. People were very excited. So with our material knowledge, we can't even reach till Pluto. Then what to talk about the spiritual world? We don't even know much, everything about the spiritual material world itself. Then how do we know about the spiritual world, which is very far, far away? We can know it through this spiritual knowledge, the spiritual books. That is where Bhagavad Gita has a very special significance. It is not material science. Definitely it talks about matter and material science. Then it talks about the spiritual world and the spiritual science also, which no research can figure out. Only Supreme Lord Krishna has to explain it, because he is the supreme creator. He knows everything. So now here Krishna is revealing about the spiritual world. He's saying, Natat Bhashyate Suryo. Pashyate means the illumination in that place is not by Surya, it is not by a sun. Na Shashanka is not by moon. Na Pavakaha is not by electricity. So it is self-illumined. The illumination is already self-effulgent. It doesn't require a sun or a moon or fire or electricity, isn't it? Daytime we have sunlight, night the moment it becomes very dark. If there is moon, there is sunlight, or else we need to get fire or electricity. Right? Sometimes there is power shutdown, everyone is lost. They're out of their mind. It's all dark and they're so lost. Right? There needs electricity, or else if we are in darkness, or even our mind won't work. What to do? Where are we? Right? So we are so dependent. But the spiritual world is self-illuminated. And then Krishna is saying something, yad gatva na nivartante. So now something else is telling about the spiritual world. He's saying, once you go there, you won't come back. Yad gatva na nivartante. So this is very important to know. Tat dhama paramam mama. He says that place, tat dhama paramam, is the supreme. It is the highest. Earlier in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about this material world. He talks about the Brahma Loka, and he says, Ah Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punaravartino Arjuna. He says, even if you go to Brahma Loka is like the topmost in this material world. Krishna is saying, Ah Brahma Bhuvana Loka, even if you go to the Brahma Loka, Punaravartino Arjuna, Punar Avartino, you will come again. Oh, Arjuna is saying, you will come down again. So he has explained that in this material world, no matter where you go, Kshine Punya Martalokam Vishanti. He says, why? Because when you go to higher planetary systems, higher planets like heaven, Indraloka, Chandraloka, Suryaloka, these are all material world higher planets. You go when you have very good punya, very good karma you do. You go there to enjoy. It is you're rewarded for the good deeds. But Kshine Punya, once your punya is over, Murtilokam Vishanti, you will come down to this material world. So Krishna, a couple of times he has mentioned that you will go up, you will come down. You'll go up, you will come down. You go to the material planet, highest planet, you will come down. Punaravartina. Kshine Punya Vishanti. Your punya is over, you will come down. So far, that's what we've been known. But here Krishna is saying, now this is a different kind of a planet. This is a different kind of world. It is not like Brahmaloka or Indraloka, where you go, you'll come down again to the earthly planet. Where will we come down? We are always saying down, where? Shine Punya Martyalokam Vishanti, Martyalokam, the earthly planet where there is death. See how Krishna is calling our world. He's calling Martyalokam, where there is Mrityu. This is how, the Vedic knowledge classifies our planet as. We are given a word called Earth, but they are referring us as, these people are in the Mrityu-loka. Why? Always Mrityu is happening. Every day in the news, there is only Mrityu only. Isn't it? So many COVID cases, so many people died. And there are big charts, graphs, which country, which state, which city, how many people died. Death is a constant news. Death is a constant thing happening. If you go to the Worldometers page, there is a counter of how many deaths. It's running very fast. Some millions of every day, every second, so many hundreds of people are dying actually. There is a counter of births also. It constantly goes on. The number goes very fast. You should go to worldometers.com, I think, or info. So this is what Martyaloka, it will come down. But now Krishna is saying the spiritual world is different. What is going on there? Tad dhamam paramamava yad gatvana nivartanti. You will not come back. If you don't come back again, there is no question of birth again or death again. It is eternal. So that is the spiritual world. So Krishna is saying, he's starting to give clue about the spiritual world. And here Prabhupada in the purport, he's giving further details. How is it that the whole spiritual world is self-illuminated? So in the spiritual world, it is just like this world. There are so many planets, right? In the material world, we have some planets right around us. So in the spiritual world also, there are so many planets. And every planet, there is self-illuminated. There is no need of sunlight or moonlight. There is just light already available. Everything is bright. Just like if there is sun, it is bright everywhere around us, right? So in the same way, spiritual world, it is known as Vaikuntha Loka. Few days from now, Vaikuntha Ekadashi is coming, and it is very famous. All the people, all devotees of the Lord, they rush to the temples to have darshan of the Lord. On the Vaikuntha Ekadashi day, it said the Lord personally comes to the Vaikuntha Dwara to bless his devotees. So the devotees, and one can get liberation, one can go to Vaikuntha. Why so much fascination for Vaikuntha? Because that is the spiritual world. Vigataha kunta iti Vaikuntha, where there is no anxiety. That's the definition of Vaikuntha. This world is full of anxiety. If you go out, you forgot to wear your mask, you're in anxiety. Oh, how will I go around? Right? So it's full of anxieties in this world. From morning to evening, there are full of anxieties. You should eat properly, you should take good rest, you should work properly, you should earn money, you should save something, you should take care of family, children, taxes, full of anxieties. But in spiritual world, there are no such anxieties. It is called Vaikuntha. And in that Vaikuntha world, in the spiritual world, it's not just one planet. There are so many planets. Prabhupada is explaining in the purport. And the whole light, it is all bright actually. There is light already over there. And that bright light is known as Brahma Jyoti. And where is this Brahma Jyoti coming from? Prabhupada is saying here that there is so many planets known as Vaikuntha Loka. Every Vaikuntha Loka, there is an incarnation or an expansion of Lord Narayana in the Vaikuntha Loka. So, we go to Tirupati, we have darshan of Lord Narayana, the four-handed form. In the Vaikuntha Loka, there are different, all the expansions of the Lord, there is a separate planet. There is Lord Narayana residing in one planet, Lord Rama in one planet, Lord Narsimha in one planet. Like that, the topmost planet, it is said as Krishna's planet, which is called as Goloka Vrindavana. So Krishna is there, and it is said that the Brahma Jyoti, that whole glow in the spiritual world is actually emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from Lord Krishna himself. It is his personal effulgence. It is the Lord Krishna's personal effulgence which is actually keeping the whole spiritual world, illuminated. And that is why there is no need of sun or moon. Right? And then Prabhupada further is saying that, as we discussed earlier, that as long as one is in this dark material world, this material world actually is in the corner of this total creation, which is actually completely mostly spiritual world. In a corner, there is something called Mahat Tattva, the material energy. And in that material, which is dark actually, which is covered, where in this material universes, there is darkness. Otherwise, if you come out of this material universe, there is no darkness. There is only this Brahma Jyoti, effulgence and illumination. And, as Krishna is saying here, we discussed earlier that Krishna is saying that we should cut down this perverted tree of this material world and become liberated and go to the spiritual world. And what is the difference between material world and spiritual world? What is it that will take us there? Is it Elon Musk to invent another rocket, SpaceX, spaceship, so that to enter the spiritual world? Actually, it is not this material means to go to the spiritual world. The means are spiritual means. And what is a spiritual mean? It is spirituality. When we say the soul, the symptom of soul is consciousness. So the soul, our real property, our real attribute, our real characteristic is our consciousness. What are we conscious about is what will lead us to the next life. So if we are materially conscious, if you are absorbed in the material world, the material consciousness is what keeps us in the material world. And spiritual consciousness is what takes us to the spiritual world. So when Shankaracharya said, Bhaja Govindam Mudamate, he's saying, you fool, you worship Govinda. What happens when we worship Govinda? We will come to our spiritual consciousness. What is spiritual consciousness? It is like an awakened state. Material consciousness is illusion state. A person who is driving the car, he is thinking, I am the car, he is in an illusion. He will remain in the car only because he's thinking is the car, this is what my position is. But if he realizes I am not the car, I am the person, I have a home, I have a family, he will immediately come out of the car and he will go into his house. In the same way, we as a spirit soul, as a Jivatma, the moment we change our consciousness from material consciousness, what is material consciousness? Very simple. Prabhupada is saying here, in the conditional life, the living entity considers himself to be the lord of this material world. This is material consciousness. We want to become the lord in this material world. We want to become more and more rich. We want to become more and more famous. We want to become more and more powerful. We want to become more and more beautiful. Why we want to lord it over? We want to be the the lord of all I survey. Prabhupada says, we want to be in the top. We want to be known as the main important. And everyone is working hard in his own small little situation. He at least wants to be better there and better, better, better. And he wants to become at one fine day prime minister given an opportunity, right? Or the president, or rule the whole world. That is our material consciousness. We want to become Lord in this material world, but our position is actually is a eternal subordinate, of the Supreme Lord. And that is the spiritual consciousness. When we worship Krishna, we'll realize that, oh my God, I am nothing to do with this material world. I am not the Lord or anything. I am actually related to the Supreme Lord. I am subordinate to Him. I should just surrender to Him and I should serve Him. My real happiness is not in these material things, but my real happiness is in my eternal loving relationship with Krishna. Ultimately, we are all looking for the peace and happiness, and that is actually available when we fall in love with God. People sometimes fall in love and they feel that they're very happy, but unfortunately, it just goes away because it's a very temporary. There is no real love in this material world. But the real love is with Krishna, with the Supreme Lord. Why? Because we originally had that loving relationship. We have forgotten and we have come to this material world. So the spiritual consciousness is that in the liberated state, right? Material state means he wants to be Lord of the material world. But in his liberated state, he enters the spiritual kingdom and becomes associate of the Supreme Lord. This is what it is. Our consciousness should be transformed to Krishna consciousness. That means we have to realize that I don't belong in this material world. I belong in the spiritual world and I am related to the Supreme Lord actually. And then they will become an associate of the Supreme Lord. What happens in the spiritual world? They will enjoy eternal bliss, eternal life, and full knowledge. Here, exact opposite. Eternal bliss, first of all, bliss itself is not there. There is so much struggle. One works hard day and night. Rarely he gets some bliss. Very little bliss. Finally, end of the day, maybe the weekend. I'll sit, I'll enjoy some time. I'll spend some time with family, friends. I'll go out. I'll watch a movie. I will eat something good. Where is the bliss? Very little, very temporary. But in the spiritual world, it's eternal bliss and eternal life. Here, life so much, how much ever you work hard, ultimately death will come one day. And Krishna says, Mutyu sarvam haraschaham. As death, I will come and snatch everything away. You foolish person, you're thinking this is all yours. Let me snatch it out so that you will learn your lesson. Unfortunately, still we don't learn. And full knowledge. That is what it's called Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal. Chit means full of knowledge. Ananda means full of bliss. So that is where we should go, to the spiritual world. So Prabhupada is saying, one should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. So this is what we should do. For one who is too much attached to the material world, it is difficult to cut that attachment. So to become detached, first thing to do is we should be captivated by the information of the spiritual world. What is the spiritual world? Right? First of all, this itself is pretty captivating. Oh, there is full of bliss, there is full of life, is eternity, full of knowledge, no repeated birth, death, old age, disease, no problems of COVID or disease or or tsunami or earthquake or hurricane or tornado or snowstorm or heavy rainfall or forest fire. This itself is actually captivating, isn't it? And the Vedic scriptures, we should seek more and more information about the spiritual world. Why? Then we will become captivated. Then we will feel like I want to go there. If you don't know about the spiritual world, how will you go? Let's say somebody is working in a very busy city like Bombay, right? In the downtown, he's working. There is a lot of pollution, dust, people, crowd, no fresh air, a lot of difficulty. Somebody comes and tells him suddenly, "Do you want to go to Switzerland?" And let's say he doesn't even know what is Switzerland. He says, no, whatever, I'm fine here, is what he will say. He says, oh, you don't know about Switzerland? Hello, what is it? And then suddenly he starts explaining. This is just a very crude example, right? At least in this world, we can understand, Switzerland is definitely better than, a busy Bombay downtown, right? Then he starts explaining, oh, this is beautiful. There are rivers, there are mountains, there are Alps, there is snow on the top, there's a beautiful weather, there is clean, there is green, natural parks, lakes, and very quiet and calm and very fresh and wonderful experience. Then he will be captivated, isn't it? Oh wow, really? How can I go there, right? So unless you know about something, you can't get captivated about it, right? So we should spend some time to understand what is Krishna saying here. What is the Vedic scriptures talking about the spiritual world? Because there is some different world where we belong to. What is this? So if we spend some time, naturally we will become captivated and we will feel. See, Prabhupada is saying he should desire to transfer himself to such an eternal world, right? Sometimes people working in jobs also, if they're caught up in a very bad office, they desire to be transferred to a better office, right? So in this way we should desire to transfer ourselves to a different world, to the spiritual world. And then, you know, that is the impetus, that is the spark that can be fanned into a flame and finally achieve our destination. And how is that possible? Prabhupada is saying, right, first thing is we should understand about, we should now learn about this information. And the practical aspect is one should associate himself with the devotees, right? If he takes, how does he take to Krishna consciousness? All Krishna is saying is that you have to come back to me. And that Krishna is given a very simple formula. He says, Man mana bhava mad bhakto, always think of me. Mad bhakto, become my devotee. Mad jaji, worship me. Mam namaskuru, you pay obeisances unto me. Mam aiveshyasi, you will definitely come to me. Satyam te pratijani priyosme. He says, Satyam, this is true. Pratijani is giving a promise. I am giving a promise because you're dear to me. So now Krishna has done. He has explained spiritual world and he has given a promise. I will definitely take to you there. Why? How? If you become my devotee, manmana bhava, always think of me. Mad bhakto, become my devotee. Mad jaji, worship me. Mam namaskuru, you pay obeisances to me. Now this seems so simple. Then why can't we do? Why isn't everyone doing that? So Prabhupada is saying that it is not that easy to become detached from this material world and become attached to Krishna. So for that, what we should do? We should associate ourselves with the devotees who are in Krishna consciousness. The total consciousness has to be changed. So for that, we have to associate with devotees in Krishna consciousness. And then he says one should seek out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness. So we should find out, is there a center nearby, a Krishna conscious center, where I can actually, discharge devotional service and learn how to discharge devotional service. Right? In this way, one can cut off his attachment from the material world. And one cannot be detached from the attraction of material world simply by dressing himself in a saffron cloth. Just changing a saffron cloth, putting some, different kind of clothing is not what will make us into a devotee. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. So therefore, one should take it very seriously. The devotional service described in the 12th chapter is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. So this is what we should do. Just like when we want to learn something, we will find out an association, a society, or a training center, or an organization where they're training in the particular thing. Let's say you want to learn a musical instrument, a violin or a piano. We will find out and we will go associate with them. Then everyone is playing that instrument, everyone is talking about it, everyone is learning, excelling in it. Naturally, we will also become interested and inclined more and more to excel over there. In the same way, we should all find out a nice Krishna conscious center, either virtually or physically, and associate with them, and then slowly, gradually learn the science of devotional service. Krishna said very simple things. You think of me, manmana bhava mad bhakto, you worship me, you pay obeisances to me, right? And you become my devotee. But how do we do that? Right? That is where it is a science, it is an art of cultivating this knowledge and these practices so that we can actually become a devotee. Not just artificially, but actually within the heart, it should evoke, it should bring about love for the Supreme Lord. And how is that possible? It is a science. Just like we learn everything, we have to revive. This is more of revival than learning. Learning is learning something that you don't know. Revival is something that you already don't know, you have forgotten, just you have to revive it. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Nitya Siddha Krishna Bhakti. This Krishna Bhakti is actually there in everyone's heart. Stop the corona, it is not something external. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitta Korai Udai. By hearing about Krishna, Shuddha Chitta, our consciousness, our mind will become clear. Korai Udai, it will naturally awaken. So this Krishna consciousness, this devotional service, this love for the Lord is not an artificial imposition. It is just a revival of what is already there by removing some coverings. Our material illusion is a covering. It has to be removed. That's it. Love for Krishna is already there. Prabhupada gives an example, just like a child, his walking ability is already there. You just have to guide him little bit, hold little hand here, that he will naturally walk. So like that, our loving ability to the Lord is already there. We're already loving so many things in this life. We just have to remove some of illusory covers, and then we will love Krishna. So, and the simplest process in this day and age is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and reading Bhagavad Gita, understanding instructions, associating with devotees as it is been stressed here, and performing devotional service in association to the Lord. And then naturally one will be able to advance and follow this one instruction of Krishna, where he's saying, you cut down this tree and you come back to me. That should be the aim of our life, right? We should be captivated by this statement of Krishna, that there is a spiritual world and I can go there and I can love, I can live a life without anxieties, full of eternal life, eternal knowledge, eternal bliss, and no miseries of birth, death, old age, disease. So we should be constantly be captivated by this aspect, and we should be constantly working towards it. And definitely at the end of life, we will be able to achieve it by the mercy of Krishna. So I know it's about time, so I'll stop here. Thank you everyone for participating. So please take advantage of this knowledge. Please chant Hare Krishna regularly. Please associate with devotees and make your life successful. Thank you. Hare Krishna.